Good morning, everybody. Welcome today to How Are We Doing? A Museum Community Town Hall presented by the Cultural Center of the Philippines Visual Art and Museums Division. I'm Yael Buencamino of the Alliance of Greater Manila Area Museums, and I'll be your moderator for today. Yesterday, we heard from two speakers, Maribel Garcia of the Mind Museum and Brian Paraiso of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. They told us how they dealt with the COVID and quarantine situation. And today we will have the opportunity to share with each other our own experiences and how our museums have dealt with the same situation. We will be breaking out into groups. The groups are classified according to the type of museum you are. We have three groups: government museums, private museums, and university museums. And then we'll come back to the plenary group for 30 minutes of group reporting, and then we'll have an open forum for 20 minutes.
Ako personally, I'm going through a lot of anxiety with the situation. Really fervently pray that this will stop already. For us to move forward and learn from what happened. We do make it a point to go an extra mile for our guests. Kasi I always believe that what we are doing is service.
All of our 2020 projects and a part of our 2021 projects are on hold. The funds for those have been used for the response of the government to the COVID-19 crisis. No one lost their jobs. Thankfully, there were funds for that. As of now, they're walking. Those who are near the museum walk.
We find that it's difficult to really get new blood into the cultural heritage system. It's one of the biggest challenges for government museums is how do you educate other departments of how important your work is. Hopefully that we have to find a way of re-educating our government officials that we are different, that we are more than entertainment centers. We are an alternative educational center. We have to take into consideration how do we protect also the environment of our heritage sites from constant disinfection, using chemicals, what will be the effects of these chemicals on our object, what's the safest way for our museums to survive vis-a-vis all of these chemical interventions.
For us, maybe we could share each other's platform and promote each other. I think that's one of the important things that we can contribute to each other.
What are the alternative ways? For example, some of my museum curators, they came up with their own virtual tour by using their cell phone and then uploading it and trying to edit it sa mga simple video editing tools available online. More or less, they came up with a very good version. It may not be as high level as yung mga international museums, but it's adaptable to us in our situation now.
We do still have some budget from the parent company, but syempre, some programs have to go in order for us to keep our salaries going. And then we're also looking to fast-track contactless payment so that we could monetize online museum programs.
With regards to fundraising, I think it's harder to ask now because we're trying to learn the metrics of how the companies would now measure the impact. During summer, we were really busy going out to the different provinces and doing workshops. And these are paid workshops. So these are corporations who pay for children 1,000 per head per workshops. And it's good money and it adds to our more programs that we do for the less and the underprivileged kids.
During the lockdown, we've started activating our Facebook and Instagram pages to create shops. And during our first week, skeletal mode pa lang kami, pero we've been able to raise around 450,000 through sales of merchandise. I'm very optimistic that we can do it half-half, online and physical.
To prepare for the future, we are expecting changes in practices. For example, you reduce your capacity by 50%, not only in terms of audiences for the museum, but also maybe in terms of the workforce on-site. So we're looking at the roles of each of the people, whether sino yung kailangan talaga on-site, sino yung pwedeng mag-continue to work from home.
All of these exercises will have some kind of a result at the end of this museum talks, because the museum talks, what we try to aim is come up with what we call museum toolkits. And these toolkits will be now the fundamental and the minimum requirement for how we will be able to operate our museums. And hopefully, you can share these toolkits to your company that supports you so that they will know what are the things that had to be attended to in terms of priorities, right?
The world is changing in major ways and very fast. Before we came into this online thing, Siberia just had a record heat wave. Siberia, okay, record heat wave.
Yep.
So, and that will affect all of us in terms of the seasons.
Yes.
So, and that's why I'm really pushing very hard for all our museums to think about that, to carry that story forward. The nature of your museum is because we're in this together. Doesn't matter anymore what kind of museum you are.
Content provisions, as a service is a potential revenue generator for museums.
I'd like to talk about collaboration
Yep.
among museums, because we all have our different areas of expertise, and like I mentioned earlier, those resources are probably your best currency right now,
Yep.
Even that there's no financial.
Yeah.
So being able to like barter a service for in exchange for something else, I think be something we could look into as well.
About how we're managing with the collection. Yung 3 months na nakasara tayo. Sister, paano kayo? How were you able to manage that? Yung collection care.
Well, the museum is pretty secure. So from at least twice during the lockdown, we visited and opened the shelves, the cabinets, etc., to see what was, whether there was mildew or whatever. But far, everything is okay.
Before pa po mag-lockdown, meron po kaming daily monitoring ng temperature and humidity. So as of the moment po, nasa ideal range pa naman po kami. And patuloy po kami na naglalagay ng nag-on, nag-off ng aircon and dehumidifier.
Yung main gallery po and yung visible storage namin before pa po the pandemic, meron 24 hours talaga yung aircon. Nung nagsimula po yung MECQ, kasi ako actually po yung nag-manage ng collection, that was one of the first things I did was to check yung main gallery and yung visible storage. Thankfully, wala naman masyadong naging problem.
So, I think generally all of us did not have a problem of mold growth, mildew, no?
This has been a very enriching, sharing.
Yes, it's good to share, no? Kasi ang maganda, we're within a bigger institution, it actually helps,
yes.
No? But sometimes it also places us in a parang a situation na hindi natin alam ang gagawin kasi mag-iintay tayo ng directive from the top, no? So I think it's a matter of balancing.
Maybe we will proceed directly to the reports from each of the groups.
Some of the museums get support, not necessarily monetary, but through donations, and not just donations of collections, but donations of items like cleaning materials, equipment, and things like that, which are also very helpful in terms of cost cutting. Technical assistance was really at the top of everyone's list. How do we learn these new ways of sharing and even documenting our collections?
The university museums to report.
From this session, what we picked up, so budget for all university museums mostly comes from tuition fees of students. So more or less secure yung budget, but with cost-cutting measures mostly in regular expenses. So the good thing about all is at least the salary of the staff and the benefits are still ongoing. So we had this question of how are we addressing the role in the context of providing education as a university museum. So what came out from that is that we have to be more active in collaboration with our educators.
For the private museums group, I think Dan is going to report for us.
with the nature of the organizations joining in our group discussion, most of the concerns talaga revolve around funding. So one, private museums have either endowment for the setup or construction and operations of the organization. So most private museums rely on ticket sales or space rental to generate funds for operations. Almost all are not certain about funding for the next 2 years.
Brian, you were talking about the conserving of the artifacts, historical objects. I was quite interested in that, and we're hoping that at some point there can be a knowledge sharing for the other museums as well.
The NHCP has our own Materials Research and Conservation Division. These are a group of very young scientists and young conservators. For me, it really pays that you have very good, very young individuals who are very much willing to take care of our heritage. They're the ones who will carry over the work that we are doing now for the future. Actually, they have a program. It's Conservation Goes to the Province. Every year, they share their expertise with different LGUs around the country. If any of the museums here would want to have a chance to learn about conservation with them, all you have to do is to write to the NHCP, and we could schedule you for the coming year, for 2021.
I'd like to encourage us to continue these conversations amongst ourselves. We're hoping to put together a handbook for museums about what to do in situations like this.
Sharing some information here, how you can contact AGMAM.
Please keep checking our Facebook page for announcements of the succeeding talks. We have talks lined up for July and August already. Thank you very much to Rica Estrada and the CCC Visual Arts and Museum Division for hosting the past few days. And thank you all for giving us your these past 2 mornings. It's been great to hear from all of you and to see all of you. And I think we've all learned a lot from you.
Thank you, everyone.
Please invite us again.
We will.